silence isn't empty. It has weight. Imagine going 8 years without hearing a single human voice. 8 years where every thought starts to sound like a voice you no longer recognize. 2,920 days. The world buried him. They held a funeral, cried over an empty coffin, and erased his name from the list of survivors. But he didn't die. He was left behind, deep in the wilderness, where civilization ends and the nightmare begins. And what he became during that time was no longer fully human. Betrayal has a specific smell, the smoke of an engine fading into the distance while you scream until your lungs bleed. In 1954, Elias wasn't a hero. Just a man who trusted the wrong people. When the supply plane left that isolated mountain range, he thought they'd be back in 2 days. 2 days turned into 2 months. 2 months turned into 2 years. Abandonment is a wound that never closes, it rots. He stayed there with nothing but a dull knife and the clothes on his back, surrounded by miles of dense, indifferent forest. The first phase is panic. Elias ran until his feet blistered and tore open. He called out names that soon began to fade from his memory. Hunger hits in a way that rewrites your existence. He learned to eat what crawls. He learned that the bark of certain trees tastes like survival, but carries the bitterness of defeat. Loneliness began to warp time. The sun rose and set, but for Elias it was just a cycle between cutting cold and suffocating heat. He talked to himself so he wouldn't forget how to form words, but before long, he had nothing left to say. By the 3rd year, winter nearly took him. He was in a cave, shaking so violently his teeth cracked. He saw searchlights, or thought he did. He crawled into the snow, waving his arms, but it was just the moon mocking his misery. That night, something inside him died. He stopped waiting. He stopped looking to the sky for planes. The man who loved music and had a fiancée back home was replaced by a creature of pure instinct. His senses sharpened to a disturbing degree. He could hear an insect crawling from 30 feet away. He could smell rain hours before it fell. He was no longer a visitor in the forest. He was the forest. But something shifted. In the middle of absolute despair, a force he couldn't explain kept him standing. It was no longer about going home. It was about refusing to let the wilderness win. He started to build. Not just shelters, but a monument to his own existence. He carved marks into stone. He created traps so complex they defied logic. There was a deep spark, a quiet faith that his life still had weight, even if no one else valued it. He refused to surrender. He refused the final silence. When an expedition group finally stumbled into his territory 8 years later, they didn't find a man. They found a shadow. Elias was covered in animal skins, his body marked with scars that told the story of countless battles against predators and the elements. His eyes held the wild gleam of someone who had stared into the abyss and never looked away. He didn't smile. He didn't cry. He simply watched them with predatory caution. He had survived what should have killed him in weeks. He was living proof that the human spirit can be shattered, but its fragments can still cut. He returned to the city, but he never truly left that forest. They took him to hospitals, gave him clean clothes and hot food. But at night, Elias sat on the floor, staring at electric lights as if they were distant stars in a foreign world. He survived abandonment, but the cost was his humanity. And the question everyone asked, but no one dared to answer, was this: who were the real monsters? The ones who left him to die, or what he had to become to stay alive? The wild doesn't forgive. But what it does to your soul is what should truly terrify you.